We're going to continue talking politics here on the Glen Biegel Show. I'm Bethany Marcum filling in. We're going to talk about some stuff that's going on with the Alaska Republican Party. Some of you probably participated in or were at least familiar with the PPP, the Presidential Preference Poll that happened a couple of weeks ago. And there have been a few scattered district conventions since then. But what's the big push that's happening this weekend is there are 13 districts in Alaska that are holding what are called district conventions for the Republican Party. And if you're not familiar with those, what it is, it's an opportunity for the Republicans to get together and do a couple of important things. They're going to talk about internal leadership within their districts, and they're also going to talk about policies and such. And so I have asked one of the regional representatives for the Alaska Republican Party to be with us here today to explain to us a little bit about what's happening at these district conventions and why she's here for them. So I'd like to welcome Ann Brown, who came from Fairbanks.
Thank you, Bethany.
Ann, if you could please tell us what you know about these district conventions and why they're important and what happens at them.
Well, the district convention is a very grassroots effort on the part of the party to attract registered Republicans to their district conventions to be part of their organized districts. Now, at the districts, it's important, especially in a presidential year, for folks to be delegates to their district conventions, be elected to their state delegation from their district, and then once one is a state delegate, one can be then elected to the national convention in Cleveland. And there are many people excited about the presidential election this year.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed.
and this is their opportunity to get in there and try to make a difference, even as high as the presidential level in the election of our nominee for the party.
So if you're enthusiastic about one of the candidates, you're saying this is the way that you can really get involved with that.
This is the way someone who's enthusiastic about supporting a Republican primary presidential candidate to get in there and make a difference.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. So you have to become a district delegate. From there, you can get elected as a state delegate, and from there as a national delegate, correct?
Correct.
All right. So 3 different levels to get through, but you can do it.
Correct.
All right. So you're down here to visit some of these district conventions. Tell me what brings you from Fairbanks to do that.
Well, I came down because I'm going to be running for party chair, and I wanted to make sure that I stopped into the district conventions down here in order to meet some people, shake a few hands, and answer any questions they have about my candidacy.
Why are you running then for that position?
Well, I think this is a good time for me to run for the following reasons. First of all, our current chair has announced several weeks ago that he is not going to run for re-election. And I think he did a good job of restoring calm after a difficult period. But now we have an opportunity to accomplish some important goals that I think the party should have. One of the first accomplishments I think we need to tackle is getting rid of the unconstitutional restrictions on fundraising that state law places on us. State law has an effect on the Republican Party that it doesn't really have on the Democrat Party based on these restrictive laws. And after a case called Citizens United from 2010, it's very clear that those restrictions are unconstitutional. So this is a good opportunity.
This just affects our state. It's based upon cases that happened in state law, in the state court, right?
Well, correct. We have state law that APOC, the Alaska Public Offices Commission, enforces. And those state laws create restrictions on corporations and businesses donating to political parties and candidates. And Democrats are not as affected by this because those restrictions don't apply to labor unions and their political action committees, which can contribute to the Democrat Party.
That's what I was just going to say. Wait, how can so you're saying that the unions are allowed to, of course, contribute to candidates, which we've already known, and yet business corporations cannot contribute to candidates. That seems like a little unfair.
It does. It has a disproportionate impact on our fundraising that the Democrat Party really doesn't have to suffer. And it's clear based on the 2010 United States Supreme Court case that this is a First Amendment speech issue. And the Supreme Court stated very clearly that labor unions and corporations and businesses should be on an equal footing with respect to fundraising, which is a free speech issue.
So how do we get that changed?
Well, there are a number of ways that we could change it. The legislature could address this by law. The legislature, I sense, is a little reluctant to do that.
Well, they're a little busy right now with the budget too.
Yeah, they are busy, but you know that you sue them. That's all. That's how you get rid of unconstitutional laws. You sue the state and you win.
And you are an attorney, so you know a little bit about that sort of thing.
I do know about lawsuits, and I know how to win them. That's correct.
Well, that's good to hear. Okay, so we have Ann Brown here with us, and she is currently the regional representative for the Alaska Republican Party. And we're going to continue talking to her about what's going on with the Alaska Republican Party, why she's running for state chair, her vision. She's come down from Fairbanks to join us, so I hope you'll stay with us. We're going to continue talking about this. This is Bethany Marcum filling in for Glen Biegel. This is Hot Talk, KOAN, 1080 AM, and this is Bethany Marcum. I'm filling in for Glen Biegel. Very happy to be with you here on this Friday, and also very happy to have Ann Brown, the Alaska Republican Party regional representative for Region 1. Is that the correct region, Ann? Okay. And she is here today talking to us about the district conventions and about the fact that she's running for party chair, and that would be to replace not to replace, but it's Peter Goldberg is who's stepping down, correct?
That's correct.
And so you'd be moving into that position or running for that position.
Correct.
What is your vision kind of for the party? Why in the world would you want to take on this? Because the Republican Party's been kind of, well, it's been in the news a lot over the years. So why would you want to take that on?
Well, I would first say that I'm a pretty proud Republican, and I've been a Republican for over 30 years. And I believe in the principles of the Alaska Republican Party. And I'd like to reach out and make sure that others feel the same way and join us. And this is a good opportunity after Peter's leadership to help do a couple of more things other than what we just discussed. First of all, I'd like to firmly restore the Central Committee as the governing body of the party pursuant to the Alaska Republican Party rules. I think it's very important that everybody understand that the Central Committee is the governing party, the governing body, and the chair fulfills the vision of the Central Committee.
For folks who might not be familiar, could you explain kind of what the Central Committee is?
Yes, the Central Committee is made up of various the district chairs throughout the state, the bonus votes throughout the state, and some ex officio members. So I believe...
So it's like real representation of the whole state of Alaska.
Right, and it is grassroots representation, and the makeup of the Central Committee is varied. We have lots of different people on the Central Committee who bring lots of different areas of expertise to their roles in voting for policies for the party.
So really making sure that those people are the ones kind of making the decisions for and guiding the party, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And
I'm going to stop you there for a second because we actually have two callers on the line who have questions for you. So if you wouldn't mind, let's get those folks on air and see what questions they have. First, we have David. David, are you on air? And what would you like to ask Ann?
Wow, I beat the other guy out. I feel good.
Well, he'll be after you. Don't worry.
Oh, Ann, thank you very much for taking on this chairmanship of the party. I'm going to support you on that. And hope you win it. But I've been watching the great schism of the Republican Party across the country. And it appears as if correct me if I'm wrong. There may be two factions. It looks like it's, let's say, for lack of a better term, the establishment faction, and then there's the newer faction, or let's say the change faction that wants to bring maybe some change to the party, re-energize it and invigorate it. And is that what's going on in Alaska?
I think what's going on in Alaska is that we actually have more factions than that. And
I agree. It's pretty well factioned out.
And I think that's one of the great sadnesses about being an Alaska Republican now, because we have the constitutional conservatives who basically see themselves as the Alaska Republican Assembly. We have the libertarians. We have the evangelicals. We have the Ronald Reagan Republicans. And in my view, that's a very beautiful big picture of people. And I want all of them back under the aegis of the Alaska Republican Party. But in order to do that, my view is also that we have to follow our party rules so everyone understands how things are applied consistently, and that all of them need to get elected to the state central committee if that's their goal, and then come forward, make their arguments, and make their positions known. And they need
nothing behind the scenes there. Everybody having a place at the table.
I am a sunshine person. I think everyone needs to be able to say his piece or her piece without manipulation and chicanery behind the scenes.
Whoa! So there won't be a curtain there, and anybody behind the curtain.
There will be no curtain. The Central Committee is the governing body, and in my view, the chair enacts the policies of the Central Committee.
Well, that sounds great, and that's refreshing. I want to wish you the best of luck in that, because you're going to maybe have to knock some heads together to get them to come to agreement. And I'm not going to be one of those heads, but
hey, attorneys have done that kind of thing their whole careers, I think.
Ooh,
so.
I smell lawsuit. Well, thank you very much, and keep up the good work and good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and we also have Dave on the line. Dave, do you have a question for Ann?
Yeah, I'm Dave Neese, a school board candidate. When the Central Committee is like trying to coordinate things, do they do it independently of the chairman, or is the chairman supposed to coordinate that stuff? In other words, like if you're trying to work with candidates, or you're trying to like you're doing an APOC thing to get the amount left off and stuff, does that come out of the committee, or does it come out of the chair, or are you guys working for or against each other? How does that work?
Well, the Central Committee meets 4 times a year, and the Central Committee enacts the policy that the party needs to follow. The chair is to implement that policy according to the Central Committee's will. There are different committees, standing committees of the party, one of which is a candidates committee, and I don't believe that is currently a functioning committee of the party. However, we need to have a committee that can deal with folks such as yourself, good conservatives who want to run for office. And what we need to do is give our candidates the tools they need to be successful. We need to give them focus group information. We need to make sure that they have technical information in order to find their voters and get their voters out to the polls.
Polling information.
Yes. Data information. So
campaign school sort of stuff.
Sure. All of that is necessary for us to back our candidates up and be successful. At the moment, we don't have the position of data director filled. I don't think we don't have a political director. And we don't have several positions in place that would be very helpful to our candidates.
And some of that probably ties back to what you talked about early on, which is the fact that we don't have the funding to be able to fund some of those positions, because some of those positions could be at least partially paid positions, correct?
Correct. The positions that would be paid positions would be an executive director, a political director, a data director, a finance director. We don't have any of those positions filled right now.
So people with real expertise to help the candidates.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I was kind of like, right now it's sort of like an improv routine. So I was wondering if it was supposed to be organized.
In some states it is, Dave.
Okay, just not ours. All right.
Well, and it's not one person's fault, I don't think. I wouldn't point the finger at any one person. Would you agree, Ann?
I don't think it's any one person's fault. I think that people get entrenched in leadership, and I'm not referring to certainly our current chair, who made it clear that he didn't want to be a perpetual chair, but people get entrenched in leadership, and maybe behind the scenes they have a particular view about what should happen, and people just go along with them for whatever reason. But I think it's time for a new face.
Well, and sometimes people go along because that's the way it's always done, and it's a lot easier to go along with what's always been done than to actually make changes. And particularly if you are a volunteer who has to be the one to step up and exert your own efforts to make those changes, as opposed to just giving your ideas and hoping someone else does it. And it's really difficult in a volunteer organization to get those kind of things to happen because you need to find people who are willing to carry them out.
Well, that's true because the chair position is not a paid position. It's a voluntary position that probably takes about 60 hours a week in order to do successfully. So you need to find somebody who has the will and the intestinal fortitude and the wherewithal to do that.
So how will you have the time to devote 60 hours a week to this?
Well, I'm a retired attorney. I don't practice law anymore. My children have been raised and are successful in their individual careers. And I've been working as the Region 1 representative now for almost 3 years. I do spend quite a bit of time every week doing that so that we can have a successful Region 1 effort. And I just realized that it wouldn't take too much more to actually run the party the way I think it should be run.
But don't you live in Fairbanks? Isn't the party headquarters here in Anchorage?
Yes, that's correct. I do live in Fairbanks. I've lived in Fairbanks for over 30 years. I love Fairbanks. I love the weather, believe it or not. However...
And now I'm having to doubt you.
Well, when I left Fairbanks today, it was brilliant sunshine. So,
Okay.
However, my husband and I are fortunate enough to own property in Anchorage, and we can be down here full time if necessary. And I do believe it's necessary, so I will be here full time should I win.
So if you're elected, you will be in Anchorage full time.
That is
running
correct.
The party.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, that's an important commitment to be willing to make.
Good to hear from you, Ann, and best of luck.
Thank you very much, Dave.
All right. Thank you.
And it looks like we have another caller on the line with another question. So, Paul, do you have a question for Ann?
I do. And I'm coming in this conversation a little late, and I apologize. You're running for a position on the Central Republican Committee, or what are you?
I'm running for the Alaska Republican Party chair.
All right. Well, I'm a kind of a latecomer, but there's supposed to be district committee meetings tomorrow morning. Is that right?
Yes, they're called district conventions, and they are meetings of individual districts within the state. And people who are registered Republicans, any registered Republican as of December 4th of 2015 is eligible to be a delegate to his or her district convention.
Now, when you go to that convention, like mine, I think it's tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at the Church of Nazarene or something.
That's correct, yeah.
Now, if you wanted to be a delegate to go to I guess, D.C. or whatever, the main convention, how does that work? You just put your name in and you have to pay something, or?
Well, you have to pay for your district convention fee, which is usually a pretty nominal fee. And you have to...
Couple hundred.
Hey, Paul, can you hold through the break? We're going to break now, and we can continue giving you some information after the break and talking with Ann Brown from the Alaska Republican Party. This is Bethany Marcum, filling in for Glen Biegel. We'll be right back. So you are one of the people getting to hear some of life's greatest ideas because you are listening to Talk Radio. This is Bethany Marcum filling in for Glen Biegel on the Glen Biegel Show here on this Friday afternoon. And I'm happy to have here with me Ann Brown down from Fairbanks, who is talking to us about the Republican Party, the fact that she's running for chair and what she sees for the Republican Party in the future. And one of the things she's kind of been talking to me about during the break is the fact that she's hoping to expand it to more people. And Paul is on the air with us, and Paul is one of those people that hopefully we're going to bring in and get more active in the party. So, Paul, we were kind of giving you some information about the district conventions tomorrow. Ann, do you want to kind of give him a little bit more information there based upon what he was asking?
Sure. So if you're a registered Republican, as I said, from December 4th, 2015, Anybody is eligible. One of those people is eligible to be a delegate to his or her district conventions. Usually, the district convention charges a nominal fee for the convention of about $20 to $50 is usually the range.
And that's really to cover the cost of the venue where the convention's being held.
Correct. Yeah, it's just to cover expenses for the district convention. You would go to your district convention, pay your fee, and fill out some paperwork as to how you'd like to work in the party, what positions you're interested in, what you'd like to do to help Republican candidates. And you turn that paperwork in, and then there's usually a nominations committee for each district, and the nominations committee considers all of this paperwork and usually comes up with a slate of nominees to the state convention. And then the district convention votes on the nominees to the state convention, and those who are elected then move on to the state convention, which this year is being held in Fairbanks on April 29 and 30. And Chairman Goldberg asked me to chair the committee to plan the convention.
So you're planning the convention as well as running your region.
Correct. As region representative for Region 1, we've had a lot of work up there. We've done the PPP where we had 2,300 people come through our venue in 5 hours. We are doing our district conventions next Saturday, and we are planning the state convention, which will be at the end of April.
And so for folks who want to participate in the state convention, like perhaps Paul, what is the fee for participating in that one?
Well, if you are elected to be a state delegate, you must pay a $285 fee, and that includes all of your meals. I think we're giving 5 great meals, which includes a banquet, a Friday night banquet at which we have a wonderful guest speaker named Pete Hegseth. He's a Fox News commentator, and his expertise is national security. We are also having Senator Dan Sullivan, who is going to speak at a gala reception on the Thursday night before the convention. We have Senator Lisa Murkowski, who's going to be a luncheon speaker. And so we've got a lot of interesting things for people who are interested in Republican politics to do and hear.
So, Paul, does that answer your questions about what's going to be going on?
I have a couple more, if I might.
We have time for one more, and then we'll have to move on. We've got a couple more things coming up here.
Well, then I'll have to skip the question, get to one of my concerns, if that's the case.
Sure.
I'm a Trump supporter, 100%. I also like Ted Cruz once he's vetted. I think there'll be a perfect team if we feel comfortable with Ted Cruz. And in thinking that, I want to make sure that any delegate that goes to the national representation is a true and honest broker. I do not want to see any establishment finagling going on behind the scenes whatsoever. Is there some way that you can tell me how to address that issue so that whoever we choose, that we can be assured that they will be a true broker and what I call a real American representative? And I guess I'll get off the line because you're short on time and take your answer off the air. And thank you for what you're doing and thank the Republican Party. But I'm very, very concerned that
it's a legitimate concern, Paul. That's a legitimate concern. So, Ann, how can he be sure that the people who are going to be Trump delegates, so to speak, are going to be supporting Trump?
At the state convention, if a state delegate wants to be a delegate to the national convention, and at the national convention, that's where the delegates vote for the nominee of the party. That's how someone is nominated as the Republican candidate for president. So, in order to go to the national convention, you must put your name in to the nominations committee at the state convention, and you must pledge to which candidate from our PPP results you are bound. So we have the candidates from the PPP who achieved 13% of the vote or more. They each get a certain amount of delegates from our state, and those delegates are pledged to that candidate through the first 2 ballots at the national convention.
So they actually have to sign something saying they're pledged to that candidate, and that is who they will support for those first 2 rounds.
They're bound to support that candidate through the first 2 rounds of balloting. They can't change. Once the first two, if no nominee is had after the first two rounds of balloting, that's when people will start to decide whom to support. And so the delegate is free at that point to vote for any candidate, any primary candidate, in order to be the Republican nominee for president.
And I will just say here at this point, before we move on from this topic, that if this sounds like a crazy convoluted process and you don't like the way the process sounds, the way to get the process changed is to get involved in the party, because all of these rules are set by the people who she's talking about, the people who go to these district conventions, the people who go to the state conventions. We talk about and revise rules like this every single time we get together. So all of these rules are set by the normal people. And I think we're hearing the phone line there, Reagan, from Paul. And that's okay. And so the way that you can get that changed is, if you don't like the convoluted way that it sounds, is to get involved. Anything can happen. It's just up to us as people to decide how we want the party to be. So thanks for explaining that, Ann. I did want to talk to you briefly about something that happened in Anchorage here recently. I know you're from Fairbanks, but we have had a little bit of a controversy that occurred in the last couple of days. And there was a robocall that was sent out by the Republican Party, and I got a bunch of calls on that robocall. So we're going to ask Reagan to play for us this robocall. Everybody take a listen to this, and we're going to discuss this. Ann, I know you're from Fairbanks, but I'd like to have your opinion on this. So take a listen if you would, please.
Hello, this is Jennifer calling from the Alaska Republican Party. You should have received your Municipality of Anchorage election absentee ballot application in the mail. If not, check your incoming mail carefully for your yellow and black ballot application. If you have ordered your MOA election ballot, thank you very much. If not, please order your municipal election ballot today. Yellow flags mark required information. When your ballot arrives, vote for Kay Schuster for school board, Terry Gale for assembly in East Anchorage, or Adam Trombley for assembly in West Anchorage. If you live in South Anchorage, your assembly candidates are Mark Schimsheimer or Trey Taylor. Anchorage needs your pro-business conservative assembly and school board members to rein in Mayor Berkowitz's spending and taxes. Your completed application must be received by the municipal clerk prior to March 29th. Thanks for using the by-mail absentee service and voting for Kay Schuster for school board, Terry Gales in East Anchorage, Adam Trombley in West Anchorage, or for Mark Schimsheimer or Trey Taylor in South Anchorage for assembly. Paid for by the Alaska Republican Party. www.alaskagop.org. 907-276-4467.
All right, so that is a robocall that was put out by the Alaska Republican Party a couple of days ago. I got a bunch of calls after that went out. I didn't get it myself. I'm not sure how they decided who to send it to, but I didn't get it myself, even though I'm an officer in the party as well. But the reason I got the calls was because people were concerned because there were some Republicans whose names were not mentioned. All the Republicans whose names were mentioned twice, but some were not mentioned at all. There were at least 3 Republicans, I believe, whose names were not mentioned. And I spoke with the chair today. I actually called him on another matter altogether, and he brought up some information which is relevant and important for us to know, is that the party rules actually allow for a candidate's name to be given in a situation like that if they have a non-Republican opponent. 2 of the folks who are Republicans running in these races do not have a non-Republican opponent. That would be Amy Demboski and the man who is the brother of the man who used to be our senator, whose name I'm just not even going to say, who is apparently a Republican. But they are both running as Republicans, but there's no Democrat or independent running in that Eagle River race. And so that is the justification for why I was told that their names were not on the robocall. There's at least one other Republican who's running. David Nees is running as a Republican for school board. His name was not mentioned. And I asked the party chair about this because I'd been getting a bunch of calls about it, and when he brought it up to me. So I would like to ask Ann, since she's running for party chair, what do you think about this situation?
Well, Bethany, I think this is a very serious problem. it's not the first time that we've heard that one or more individuals have operated behind the chair's back to flout the authority of the state central committee.
And I should back up there and say to folks, I told Ann what the conversation was before the break here, but when I talked to the chair about this, he did not know that this had happened. He was sincerely and genuinely surprised and frustrated that this had happened and did not know about this. So just so that everyone knows that Mr. Goldberg does not seem to have been involved in this at all.
So in my view, he wasn't involved in it. This happened behind his back. And in my view, he should consider moving very quickly to remove whoever constructed the robocall in violation of the Alaska Republican Party rules such that this cannot happen again. The selective naming of candidates amounts to a de facto endorsement of those named.
Okay, well, that's one way of looking at it, most definitely. I mean, because it's really an endorsement, isn't it? By giving those names attached to the Republican Party name.
I think it's a de facto endorsement.
All right, we're going to continue talking about this. I'm on with Ann Brown here, and she is the Region 1 representative of the Alaska Republican Party running for party chair. And we're talking about a robocall that was put out here in Anchorage. Some of you may have gotten it. We're going to talk about it and kind of the kerfuffle that has resulted from that robocall. So I'm Bethany Marcum, and I'm filling in for Glen Biegel. And we are going to finish up the show here today by hearing from Ann Brown. We hope you'll stay with us. If you have calls you'd like to ask Ann or just maybe received the robocall and would like to talk about it, give us a call here at 569-1080. Feel free to call 569-1080. We won't get Glenn. You'll get Bethany Marcum filling in for Glenn here on this Friday. And it's not just after a hard day's work, but it's a whole hard week's work because, yes, it's Friday. It's your drive home on Friday. And we are talking about crazy stuff going on with the Alaska Republican Party and a robocall that went out. We listened to the robocall in the previous segment. And I was getting the opinion of Ann Brown, who is down here from Fairbanks. She was running for party chair, so I thought it was relevant to hear what she thought about the robocall. The current chair did not know about this robocall that went out and was not happy about it from what I heard from him. And so I wanted to get Ann's opinion since she was in the studio with me here today. So Ann, go ahead with what you were saying, your opinion.
Well, I only have a couple more comments on the robocall. One of them is that I want to stress that only the state central committee can endorse a candidate on behalf of the party.
Well, that seems pretty important to know because, I'm on the state central committee and we did not have that discussion.
No, we did not have that discussion.
So it's your opinion that this is kind of an endorsement as far as the way this happened?
Well, in the way that you explained what happened here, there was an inconsistent application of the party rules as to those individuals named in the call. And when that happened, it can be seen as a de facto or an in fact endorsement, even if it isn't an endorsement,
even if it wasn't intended,
of those individuals' names.
I see.
And since only the state central committee can endorse a candidate on behalf of the party, in fact, you and I have been in meetings where we've voted to endorse, for the party to endorse candidates.
Sure.
And that's a very open process. And people come and they argue for and against it. Mm-hmm. And we vote, the end, that's done.
Yeah, that's the final
That
decision.
did not happen here. And I want to make it clear to anyone listening that if I was elected chair, I would not allow the party to be run as a vanity project for one or a couple of individuals who go out and do things like this. It's totally wrong.
So the whole idea would be that every candidate would be treated equally.
And according to the rules.
Yeah, that's pretty important too. So we have a caller online, David. So I'm not sure if he wants to comment on the robocall or ask a question about it, but let's hear from David.
Yeah, I'm a registered Republican. I didn't get the robocall. However, a certain individual contacted me several times to get David Neese not to run. And he also contacted some other people that knew Mr. Neese and also tried to get him to pull out. Although Mr. Neese filed before the other candidate, the other Republican candidate in the school board race. So, I'll call a spade. Randy Rudrick is behind this, the man behind the curtain. I know you won't say it, but I will because I can say that. So it looks to me like maybe Mr. Neese could have a lawsuit against the Republican Party. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not sure it would be a lawsuit against the Republican Party, and I would leave that to
For Mr. Rudrick.
to sue Mr. Rudrick.
Yes.
I'm not going to give any legal advice on how
Right.
to go against anybody.
Oh, no pro bono.
However, I will say that no one has told me that it is Mr. Rudrick. However,
Well, that's the gentleman that contacted me and asked me to persuade Mr. Nee several times to pull out of the race.
yeah. Well,
And,
all I can tell you is that we have a mechanism as to how we support candidates at the party level.
Yeah, but the mechanism appears to be broken or not working, and that's one of the problems with the party. It's the rules are the rules, but some people don't follow them.
Well, I do agree with you that when the rules aren't followed, it's the chair's job to take swift action to rectify the situation.
Well, I think you should.
And I do believe that the chair should consider removing whoever did this from any position of authority or apparent authority to go out and place such a robocall.
Right.
My view is it's wrong.
Well, it really affects the reputation of our party to everyone in the state. And when people are deciding, do I want to be part of the political process, or is it better for me not to even get involved in these kinds of things? It's one of the factors that affects their decision, and it's why we have a hard time recruiting good Republicans.
It does tarnish the reputation of the party, and that's why a lot of people have left the party. And I've been told that by a lot of people that have left it. But the other thing is, one of the other candidates that was mentioned in the robocall changed his party from I don't know what he was before, but the day before he filed, he changed it to Republican.
It was actually Democrat. I did see that.
To Republican, and he was in the robocall.
And that's actually not a fault of whoever did the robocall, in my opinion. That's a fault of the rules, because the rules allow that. So in my opinion, the rules need to be changed to say that if somebody has changed their registration within a time period, that they would not be allowed to be endorsed or to be part of a robocall or any of that kind of thing. So it's something, again, that we the people, through the process, through the Central Committee process, can address and get that sort of thing changed. So David,
the convention at the Fairbanks.
So you working on writing that rule change up for us, okay, David?
I got some other ones. Okay, thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you.
All right. So as we are finishing up here, we got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to ask Ann if she would just give her, I just asked her to give a very specific opinion on a very specific subject, but I'd like for her to tell us what her, kind of really her vision is, what kind of things she wants to see happen in the party, and why she thinks she'd be a good candidate.
A couple of more things I would mention on that score are that I think our discussion here today has brought this into sharp relief. By following party rules, we're going to attract good conservatives back to the party who've been disillusioned when they couldn't rely on the rules being applied consistently, when they couldn't rely on being supported by the party. Another thing I'd like to do is I'd like to create a sense of esprit de corps and excitement about being a Republican.
I mean, we're seeing that with the Trump folks. They're excited about a candidate. So why shouldn't people be excited about a party that represents their beliefs and their values and their principles?
Exactly. And I think you do this by reaching out to the public, by educating them about what our party stands for. And I firmly believe that the majority of Alaskans would be excited to be a Republican if they understood what Alaska Republicans stand for. And that is another goal of mine.
Oh, that's an excellent point, because I believe that too. People say we're a red state. Well, then we don't really see that in the Republican Party. Well, if the party was representing and will represent what people really believe, I think that we can become a red state again. And that, I would hope, would be the goal of the Republican Party, is to make us truly a red state again. I know some people I've talked to out of state now say that they think we're purple.
I've heard people think that we're turning from purple and we're going to go blue. So yes, that's a tragedy.
Yes, it is. So I'm hoping that we can see changes. We've got again the opportunity here with Peter stepping down for there to be some new directions in the party. I appreciate you stepping up and being willing to run for party chair, and everybody who's involved in the process. Encourage you to get out. Again, the district conventions are tomorrow. Feel free to get on the website and see what's available there and find out where to go. This is Bethany Marcum. It's been my pleasure to fill in for Glen Biegel today. I'll be with you again on Monday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the sunshine.